Looks good for an adventure bike, certainly well equipped and an astonishingly high standard to the fit and finish. Really, I was blown away by the perceived quality of the bike I saw in the showroom. Okay, maybe not quite high-end Triumph or BMW, but nicer than, for example, Yamaha, and definitely up there with Honda. So, I'll take you through the riding experience and tell you what I like, and then give you two very compelling reasons why I wouldn't buy one. Okay, good things first. Now, Chinese manufacturers have always tended to mask the slightly behind-the-curve mechanicals and designs of their bikes by dazzling us with a few key components. And it's no surprise here to find, for example, gold spoked wheels, Zhejiang calipers, Pirelli tyres and Marzocchi forks, and they work just fine. Then, as I said, you've got the overall fit and finish, which is quite remarkable. All the plastics felt very nice to the touch, a level of quality which, if I'm honest, I was not expecting. And it looks good too, very nice paint, large TFT screen, luggage carriers, etc. It's comfortable, soft seat, natural riding position, though the bars could have done to be a few centimetres wider. Wind protection is good, but the screen's a little bit narrow, so my arms and shoulders were slightly exposed. So what's it like to ride? Well, the power was okay, 95 horsepower, but the engine felt more wheezy than, for example, the Tiger 900s. And acceleration was acceptable, but not astonishing. Between 4,000 and 6,000 revs per minute, which is kind of where you tend to be a lot of the time, there's a strange drop in power, meaning that you do need to play with the gears to keep things spinning. Now, as I said, it's rated at 95 horsepower, but this is at a rather lofty 9,000 RPM. And to be honest, I couldn't really feel it. I would have guessed at about 80 horsepower if I hadn't known. The bite and progression of the brakes is good, although the ABS on the rear particularly is slightly intrusive. The Maxxis tyres were very good on the road, but other than a short stint on a gravel track, I didn't get the chance to test the bike off-road. But suspension travel at 160mm at the front and 150 at the back is again good. Fuel consumption during the time I had the bike was 5.8 litres per 100 kilometres. Once again, it's good, it's acceptable, although my Speed Twin 1200 manages 4.9, despite having the same rider on more or less the same roads and 50% more cubic capacity to feed. And that's the thing with this bike. It's good insofar as you give it 6 out of 10 for everything, possibly 8 out of 10 for the fit and finish. It's good, but it's ever so slightly underwhelming. Good, but forgettable, if you will, in a Honda NT 1100 sort of way. When I handed the keys back to the dealer, I wasn't saying to myself, oh my God, I have to have one of these. But there are two real issues I have with this bike that mean that it doesn't make my shortlist. For those of you who are new here, I'm currently looking for a tall rounder come adventure bike to complement my Speed Twin. Let's deal with the subjective problem first. It's a little bit difficult to explain, a bit hard to put my finger on here, so you'll have to cut me a bit of slack. But you know when you get into an Audi or a BMW, for example, and it just feels right. Everything is where it should be. The components you touch feel expensive, good quality, just right. Well, it's pretty much the same with bikes too. Throw your leg over one of the more expensive Triumphs, BMWs or Hondas, and everything just feels right. You feel at home. You don't need to learn where the switches are or what the buttons do. It's all been well thought out by engineers, and you can just tell that the bike is the fruit of decades of research and development and ergonomics experience and customer feedback. Now, when you ride the 800MT, despite what I said about it being good in a 6 out of 10 sort of way, you don't get this reassuring feeling, or at least I didn't. Everything is slightly less intuitive, slightly less tailor-made. The seat is not quite at the right angle. The bars need to be an inch wider. The screen needs more anti-glare treatment. The rear ABS sensor needs reining in a tad. And the list goes on. In a nutshell, you can tell CF Moto have only been at this for a few years. They've made real and substantial progress, but they're not quite there yet. So that's why subjectively I wouldn't want the bike, which is maybe good enough reason in itself. But there's a bigger, more objective consideration, and that's the price. Now, for the sake of this test, I'll use euros and Portuguese prices here to keep things simple, but the numbers are very similar in US dollars, and in the UK you can just deduct about 15%. And I'll just compare it to the Triumph Tiger 900 range, again for the sake of simplicity. The two bikes look very similar, same size, same power, similar equipment. But yeah, here's the problem. They're kind of the same price too. If you look at the base 800MT against the Tiger 850 Sport, for example, you can see the price is to all intents and purposes identical. Moving up to the 800MT Sport, the model I tested here, against the Tiger 900 GT, we do see a €700 difference. Okay, nice saving, but I don't believe €700 is necessarily going to be a deal breaker when you're spending 13,000. And finally, with the top models, the Touring 800MT and Tiger 900 GT Pro with all the bells and whistles, we do begin to see a more significant price advantage in favour of the CF Moto, particularly as the rigid aluminium luggage is now included. Now, this is a very expensive option on the Tiger. Current prices, according to the Triumph website, are around €1,300. So let's say that at the top of the range, there's a 2,600 price advantage for the Chinese bike. Now, that of course is a substantial saving in anyone's books, but there's a fly in the ointment: residuals. If you want to sell a Tiger 900 GT Pro, for example, after 3 years, and depending on your country, market conditions, etc., you're probably looking at a hit of around 25%. If you have a CF Moto for sale, on the other hand, I would venture to suggest it's going to be more like 50% at least. In other words, the saving that you made at purchase is going to be completely negated when it comes time to sell. And you'll have been riding around on a CF Moto for 3 years when you could have had a Triumph. They're making progress, but they're not quite there yet. Anyway, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments, and as always, thanks for watching.